Welcome back, everybody. This deep dive is going to be pretty interesting. I think I'm really excited about this one.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So we are diving into Dr. James Dargan's sermon, Living from the Bottom of the Barrel.
Heard that one.
Yeah, he just gave this past Sunday.
Yeah.
And it really got me thinking. You might be familiar with the story of the prophet Elijah and the widow.
Right.
But Dr. Dargan's take on this is really something else.
Yeah.
It's all about how to find strength and faith when things feel impossible.
Right.
And just how God provides for us in these really unexpected ways.
Yeah, what's so fascinating about it is how he connects this ancient story with our modern lives. He really emphasizes the fact that we all face those dry spells, those times when we just feel depleted.
Totally.
Emotionally, financially, even spiritually.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into this story.
Okay.
For those who may not be familiar with this biblical story.
Right.
Elijah was a prophet in the northern kingdom of Israel.
Yes.
Now, this was a time and place where lots of people had turned away from worshiping the God of Israel.
Right.
And instead, they were worshiping this deity named Baal.
Baal was a Canaanite deity. And he represented fertility and storm, and his worship was often associated with a lot of rituals and practices that really challenged the Israelites' faith.
Yeah, so you can imagine the tension there.
Oh, yeah.
And right into this already tumultuous situation.
Yeah.
Elijah makes this Super Bowl declaration.
Oh, yeah, I hate that.
He confronts the king and basically says, hey, there's going to be a drought until God says otherwise.
It's such a dramatic scene.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to Elijah's just unwavering conviction. He was so connected to God and willing to stand up for his beliefs, even when it meant challenging the most powerful person in the land.
Yeah, and Dr. Dargan emphasizes that Elijah wasn't some superhuman figure.
No, not at all.
Or anything. He was just an ordinary guy like us.
Just like us.
And that makes his story so relatable.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Because haven't we all had moments where we've felt called to do something brave, even when it seemed impossible?
Yes. And, the story really highlights how God can work through ordinary people to accomplish really extraordinary things.
Yeah. And speaking of extraordinary,
Yeah.
let's talk about those ravens.
Oh, yeah.
God tells Elijah to go hide in the Kerith ravine.
Okay.
And you won't believe this. Ravens start bringing him food.
Ravens of all things.
I know. Can you imagine?
It's kind of funny.
You're hiding out in this desolate ravine, feeling totally lost and alone. And suddenly these birds that aren't exactly known for their generosity are showing up with your meals.
It's wild. Yeah, Dr. points out that this was a test of faith for Elijah.
Yeah.
It was a time where he had to just trust that God would provide for him, even in the most unconventional way. And it brings us to this really crucial point in the sermon where he talks about the importance of just recognizing God's provision even when it doesn't make sense.
I think we've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those moments where you're in this kind of wilderness and you're not sure how you're going to get through. And then something totally unexpected happens.
Right.
Maybe it's a small act of kindness, a chance encounter, maybe even a raven delivering a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
And it reminds you that you're not alone.
Yes. It's those moments that remind us to look beyond the limits of our own understanding and just be open to the possibility that God is working in ways we might not expect.
Okay, but we know the story doesn't end there.
No.
The brook eventually dries up.
Right.
And God gives Elijah new instructions. He says, now I need you to travel to this town called Zarephath.
Okay.
And a widow there will provide for you.
Wow.
Yeah, this is 85 miles on foot.
That's a long way.
I know.
Yeah.
You have to wonder what was going through Elijah's mind at that point.
Right.
It would be like God telling us to walk from New York City to Philadelphia with no money, no map.
Just trust me.
Just the promise.
Yeah.
That somebody will be there to help when you arrive.
That takes a lot of faith.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Dr. Dargan describes it as a leap into the unknown.
Wow, yeah.
Elijah had to completely surrender to God's plan, even though he had no idea what to expect.
It's really interesting as we hear about Elijah's journey.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, haven't we all felt like that at some point?
Of course.
On a journey with an unclear destination?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think most of us can relate to that feeling of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Of not knowing what the future holds. But like Elijah, we have to just trust.
Totally.
That even when we feel lost, God is guiding our steps.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the heart of the story, the encounter with the widow.
Yes. So Elijah arrives in Zarephath, exhausted from this long journey. And as he's approaching the town, he sees a widow gathering sticks.
Okay.
You can almost feel the weight of the situation.
Yeah, it's like a scene straight out of a movie.
Right.
The drought has taken its toll. And here's this widow preparing for what she believes is her last meal.
Yeah, she's at the bottom of the barrel, literally.
Yeah.
Dr. Dargan really captures her despair. Like he says, she stands on the precipice of hopelessness, staring into the abyss of starvation.
Wow.
Like she's resigned to the fact that she and her son are about to die.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And then this stranger walks up and asks for food.
Oh, man, talk about bad timing.
Right.
But he doesn't just ask for any food.
Right.
He asks for bread.
Bread.
And remember, bread requires flour, and this woman has very little left.
Yeah.
In fact, she tells Elijah that she only has like a handful of flour left and a little oil.
Wow.
Just enough to make one final meal for her and her son.
It's heartbreaking. It's like if someone came to your door when you only had one can of soup left.
Right.
And asked you to make them a 5-course meal.
Yeah, but Elijah, he doesn't back down.
No, he doesn't.
He tells her to make him a loaf of bread first. And then make something for herself and her son.
Okay.
And he makes this incredible promise. He says, for thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, the jar of flour shall not be spent, nor the jug of oil run dry until the day that the Lord sends rain upon the earth.
Wow, what a statement.
Right.
It's like saying, don't worry, your credit card will never be declined.
Yeah, but in this case, it's not a credit card company making the promise.
Right.
It's God.
Yeah, and this is where Dr. Dargan talks about that concept of faith as the step between promise and assurance.
Right.
The widow had to choose to trust Elijah's words, to believe in something she couldn't see or prove.
Right.
I'm curious, have you ever been in a situation where you had to take a leap of faith like that?
I think we all have at some point.
Yeah, a moment where you had to trust in something or someone, even when it didn't make sense logically.
It's scary.
It is, isn't it?
It is, and that's why this widow's story is so inspiring.
Yeah.
She could have easily dismissed Elijah as a crazy person.
Totally.
She could have said, look, I'm barely surviving here. I can't afford to be generous.
Yeah.
But she chose to obey.
She did. And that obedience Dr. Dargan suggests is what unlocks the miracle.
Yeah.
The jar of flour doesn't run out the jug of oil, never goes dry.
It's amazing.
They have enough to eat throughout the whole drought.
It's a powerful reminder that God can provide for us in ways that we can't even imagine, but sometimes we have to take that first step of faith. This story is a testament to the fact that obedience, even when it seems illogical, can lead to extraordinary outcomes.
Okay, so Dr. Dargan doesn't just leave us with this incredible story.
No, he doesn't.
He takes it a step further and connects it to our daily lives.
Right.
He challenges us to think about how we're prioritizing God.
Okay.
Are we giving him our best, or are we just giving him the leftovers?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. It really makes you think about your own life and the choices you're making.
Yeah.
Are you holding back? Or are you willing to fully surrender to God's plan? Dr. Dargan suggests that when we give God our best, when we put him first, even when it feels like we have nothing left to give, that's when we truly experience his abundance.
He uses this phrase, living from the bottom of the barrel, not to glorify scarcity or poverty,
right?
But to illustrate that even when we feel empty, depleted, at our wits' end, God can still provide for us.
And that provision might not always come in the form of a miracle,
right?
Like the widow experienced.
Yeah.
It might come in the form of a supportive friend, a new opportunity, or even just a renewed sense of hope.
So how do we cultivate that kind of faith?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, how do we learn to trust in God's provision?
Right.
Especially when we're going through our own dry spells.
That's the million-dollar question, and thankfully Dr. Dargan offers some practical insights.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Dargan shares this really personal anecdote in his sermon.
Okay.
He talks about growing up in the South during the Great Depression. His family really struggled financially, but he said they never went hungry because they always put God first. They tithed even when they had very little.
Wow.
And they always shared what they had with others.
It's a powerful example.
It is.
It's not about how much you have,
right,
but how much you give.
Exactly.
Dr. Dargan's suggesting that true abundance isn't about material wealth. but about a heart that's aligned with God.
Yeah, and he connects this to the importance of trusting in God's timing. Okay. He says, the widow didn't know when the drought would end, right, but she chose to trust that God would provide for her in the meantime.
Yeah, that can be hard.
It can.
Especially in our culture,
Oh, yeah.
Everything's so fast-paced.
Instant gratification.
Yeah, we want things to happen right now.
Right.
And if they don't, we get discouraged.
We lose hope.
But Dr. Dargan's encouraging us to, stretch out in faith.
Yeah.
We believe that God is working behind the scenes, even when we can't see it.
And he even quotes Psalm 23.6.
Okay.
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
That's a beautiful verse.
It is.
It's a good reminder that God's love and provision are constant, no matter what our circumstances are.
Absolutely.
So that brings us back to the heart of Dr. Dargan's message.
And I think that's the challenge he's leaving us with.
What is it?
What step of faith is God asking you to take?
Ooh, yeah.
What area of your life feels like the bottom of the barrel? Maybe it's a relationship that needs mending.
Okay.
A financial challenge that seems impossible, or a dream that feels out of reach.
It could be anything.
It could be.
Yeah.
Dr. Dargan's message is clear. Don't give up hope.
And who knows what miracle might be waiting for you on the other side of your obedience.
That's right.
Maybe it's time to take that leap of faith, to trust that even in our struggles, God's still working. And he can use even the smallest act of obedience to accomplish extraordinary things.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
New year, new inspiration on the Two Hosts, One Message podcast. Kick off 2025 with a powerful and life-changing message. This week's episode, Living from the Bottom of the Barrel, preached by Reverend Dr. James Dargan, dives into 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 7 through 16. Discover how God's provision and faithfulness shine even in our most challenging times. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Don't miss a moment of inspiration. Subscribe today to stay encouraged and spiritually uplifted throughout the year. Let's connect beyond the podcast. Dive deeper into this week's message with our live discussion every Wednesday at 7 p.m. It's an open, engaging, and meaningful conversation where you can share your thoughts and grow together in faith. Dial 605-313-4831 and use access code 869-360# to join the discussion. Feeling led to support the ministry? Your generosity makes it possible for us to continue spreading God's love and hope. Here's how you can give. PayPal or Zelle using CCOGNYC@AOL.com. CashApp, use $CCOGNYC. Givelify, search Congregational Church of God, 1889 Amsterdam Avenue, New York, New York, 10032. Join us in person. We'd love to see you at our Sunday service at 10 a.m. at Congregational Church of God, located on Amsterdam Avenue between West 153rd and 154th Streets. Not local? Join us live on YouTube at CCOGNYC or Facebook, Congregational Church of God NYC. Start 2025 with faith, hope, and love. There's no better time to deepen your faith and walk with God. Thank you for being a part of the Two Hosts, One Message family. Together, let's embrace a year filled with God's promises and blessings. God bless you.
Of the goodness of God. Take a moment, just think about His goodness. Think about His goodness. I see evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over